Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 10 opening scenes from Star Trek episodes. This video is a Patreon requested video, requested by patron Kyrie091. In this video, I will count down my favorite opening scenes from all Star Trek episodes. Opening scene can also be referred to as the teaser. You see, people who, I guess in the industry or no industry terms, know that the first scene, or cold open as sometimes is called, that comes on before the credits, opening credits roll, is usually referred to as the teaser, and then when you get back from the credits is Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. But I always found that term confusing for me personally, because teasers also refer to trailers, like shorter trailers, like teaser trailers. And so when I hear teaser, I think of trailers. So sometimes it confuses when people refer to the opening scene as the teaser, but I was like, this isn't a trailer, but whatever. It's the opening scene of the episode. Now, the opening scene, or the teaser as they call it, is, from a script writing perspective, it is meant to draw you in, draw the audiences, especially when referring to older TV shows, which is meant to keep your attention, draw your attention, and keep you interested, so you don't change the channel, and so you stay even after the opening credits and the commercials roll, that you're still there because that opening teaser had grabbed you and made you invested. And also, and this is what I noticed, like particularly in Star Trek, going through all of the opening scenes, is that it tends to set the stage for the episode, for the most part, which is different than something like The Simpsons. Although The Simpsons don't have a teaser because they start with the credits, but then they have the first scene, which does not set the stage for the episode because it ends up being something totally different, and the storyline changes halfway through the episode, which is what makes that show unique. But this is more typical of television, or the Star Trek episodes are, where typically, and there are some exceptions, but typically the opening scene, the teaser, sets the stage on what the episode is going to be about. So from that scene, you have at least some idea on what the theme and what the main storyline of this episode is going to be. And so in this video, I want to count down my favorite, what I think is the most unique and the most effective, where it's just not by the numbers, because as I said, as I was going through a lot of the opening scenes of the episodes, a lot are kind of by the numbers, like this is what this episode is going to be about, and that's pretty much the purpose it serves. But I sort of highlight those that are more atypical, that that make you really invested, make you really curious of what's going on, because they're presented in a unique way, or they present a really unique scenario that really draws you in. So it would be what I would call the best opening scenes of Star Trek. Now, one other ground rule I should set before I jump into my countdown is that I had decided to only include the older legacy Star Trek shows, the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, because I'm just not as familiar with the modern Trek shows. I haven't seen them a billion times like I've seen these older shows, and so I would have to go through and watch every single opening scene from the modern Trek shows to try to gauge how good they are, which I frankly don't have time to do. So I just decided to leave those aside for the purposes of this countdown and just focus on the big five, as I say, and animated series, animated series. I don't even know if they had teasers. I think they started with the opening credits too. But anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm not including that. So, Yeah, so this includes those 5 shows. So yeah, go ahead and get started with my countdown. Now I have a few honorable mentions. At first, so I got quite a bit of honorable mentions. So the first lot of honorable mentions, I'm just gonna say the episode title. And if you don't know what that title refers to, then I guess you're kind of out of luck. You can maybe look it up online, or look, and maybe I'll put a picture up to help you visually. Anyway, so this list of honorable mentions: The Defector, The Mind's Eye, Whom Gods Destroy, Distant Origins, Twilight, and The Observer Effect. So now I got 3 honorable mentions that are more important, that very nearly made my list, so I am going to go into a little bit more detail on these honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I'll get into is Emissary, which is the pilot episode of DS9. This is one of the longer teasers, or that's first scenes. I'll call them teasers for the purposes of this video, even though it's confusing with trailers. But anyway, it's one of the longer ones because it goes for about 5.5 minutes, and it tells the whole backstory of Cisco and his encounter with 5359 with the Borg, which is, I remember, really revolutionary when it first came out, because we had not seen this battle before in Star Trek, because Next Generation didn't really have the budget of special effects for it, and they kind of glossed over the battle, and we just saw the aftermath, where here they, special effects advanced a bit more, so they decided to go back and show some of that battle, but from the perspective of our main protagonist, Benjamin Sisko. In fact, this is how we meet him for the very first time, and it's a very effective way to introduce a character by showing, first of all, a situation we are familiar with and love and want to know more about, and secondly, having this tragic backstory of the death of his wife and how he dealt with that, and then flashing forward 3 years into the future when he's raising a son alone and is assigned on you see him fishing in the holodeck, and they see him introduced to Deep Space Nine like this is a new adventure. So I think it's probably the best introduction to a new show, because it's the only pilot I included on this list. So I think it's definitely the most punchy, effective way to introduce the show and the characters. Alright, so next honorable mention that I will get to is Mirror Mirror from the original series. This one is also extremely effective. Because, they had that opening scene with Kirk negotiating with the Halkins, and they're talking about how they're pacifists or whatnot. And so it seems like a normal episode, and then there's this storm going on. He beams up, but then there's something weird happens with the transporter, and then you see weird versions of Spock and Kyle and the other officers do this weird thing. They focus on their uniforms and how they're different. The landing party itself with Kirk, Uhura, Scotty, and McCoy, their uniforms have changed. They have daggers, and it's a very jarring, weird thing, especially if you're not familiar with this, especially if you're not familiar with the parallel universe concept, which when this episode first came out wasn't as in the cultural zeitgeist as it is nowadays. So it was seen as a really weird, bizarre, jarring thing. But on top of that, we see, Spock's got his goatee. On top of that, though, we see that he tortures the transporter chief, Kyle, grabs an agonizer from his own belt and tortures him with it. I think it's a really jarring, really effective opening scene. Alright, so last honorable mention I will mention is from the Empath, also from the original series. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this episode. I think this episode's just okay. But one thing that I liked most about the episode was the teaser, was the opening scene, which I thought was extremely effective, and to me remains one of the most eerie, one of the most effective horror-esque scenes in Star Trek where, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam down to this remote outpost to check up on these, scientists, but no one's there. There's dust everywhere. People don't know what happened to the people. We don't know. And so they look at this record tape and they see like the two guys just sitting there talking, and then there's this weird noise go boom, and one of them disappears, and the other one and they seem to react in pain from this weird noise too. And so the other one starts to, have that weird noise as well, and then he disappears. And then right as they're watching the tape, that weird noise is happening to them in the present time. And then, Kirk is like, where's that noise coming from? And then Spock's like grabs his ears in pain, and he disappears. And then McCoy, same thing happens to him. And then Kirk tries to run away, and he falls on the ground, and he disappears. That was fucking eerie. The fact that they're watching a tape of people, this horrific thing happening to people, and then that exact same thing starts happening to them. That's eerie. So I always thought that was a really effective one. So now we will get into my top 10 proper top 10 opening scenes, and we'll start with my number 10 waking moments from Voyager. Now this one I feel like a lot of people might disagree with me on this one. A lot of people disagree with me that this is a good episode. I like this episode a lot. Apparently a lot of people don't. But this opening scene, and this is again another long one. I think it goes for like 5 minutes. But I always loved this scene. I always thought it was a great way to open the episode, because the episode is about an alien species that attacks people in their dreams. And so we follow Paris, Kim, Janeway, and Tuvok as they're going about their days, all doing different things. We see Janeway's just wandering the ship at night trying to get something to eat. Tuvok is waking up in the morning, going to start his shift, and Paris is on a shuttle mission, doing this hazard shuttle mission on the planet, and Kim is just being called by 7 of 9, who calls him down to look at some repair thing or whatever. So it all seems mundane. But these 4 stories go in unison, and they start to get stranger as they progress. And what I like about this is at first none of the side characters overcross, because as we will learn, they're all having dreams at the moment. But the teaser very effectively keeps this hidden from the viewer at first, because none of the characters overcross their different storylines at first. So you could buy that this is actually happening in real time, that this is real life, waking life, that this is what is happening, because 7 of 9 is in Kim's storyline but no one else's. Chakotay, we can hear his voice in Tom Paris' storyline, but he's not in anyone else's. Tuvok, we just see some ensigns that we don't know, and Janeway comes with Neelix, who we don't see in anyone else's. But then things start to progress, and things start to get more bizarre. Particularly when it climaxes at the end, where you realize that something's really up. That's when they start having crossover from various characters, because by this stage something's not right, that this is not just a normal day. So when Tuvok arrives in the bridge, he's naked and and this is kind of also a giveaway that it's a dream, because that's the very cliche, very stereotypical dream that you show up to work or school naked. And it was actually kind of funny seeing this from a Vulcan perspective. And so then you see B'Elanna, you see Janeway, you see Neelix, and you see Chakotay. Pretty much everyone's there laughing at him. So there's all the crossover. So that something's up. And yeah. So yeah. And then it starts to. And then at the very end, of course, the alien appears. And he's this creepy alien who we learn is the one who's invading their dreams and causing them to have these nightmares. And, Tuvok's one, he just looks eerie. And Janeway's one, it gets weird because, everyone's like Neelix is acting weird, and he shows like all these dead people. It's like they all died waiting for you to get them home, and then the alien shows up, and then in Tom Paris's one, his shuttle starts to crash, and he's gonna die, and then the alien just appears outside of the shuttle, so something's wrong with that. And then of course it ends on Harry Kim's one when 7 of 9 is like making out with him, and then all of a sudden 7 of 9 turns into that alien, which of course freaks Harry Kim the fuck out. So, and so this, I think, effectively sets the stage for what the episode's going to be about, because it's about these aliens invading people's dreams. In fact, Harry Kim becomes in a coma after this dream, and so it starts the story in motion. And at the same time, it's a very coy way of like getting us into this world. So I always love this one. I thought this was a great opening scene. So anyway, we will get into my number 9, which is Tapestry. This is a shorter one. It's more straightforward, but yet I think very effective, where we see Picard, we see a away team beaming back from a planet, and Picard has been injured. Riker and Worf are carrying him. They said, talking about how they've been attacked. And we can kind of deduce that the circumstances of this attack is not going to be relevant to the episode, the way they kind of just gloss over it in this teaser. And they focus more on the fact that Picard is mortally injured, and he's near death, and Beverly Crusher's, trying very hard to save his life, but nothing seems to be working, and the camera focuses on him. We get this overhead shot, so they make it very clear, like, this is what we need to be focused on, and this is what the episode is going to be about. And then they flash to, like, this sort of white vision, and they're really evoking like this afterlife imagery we hear. Like there's a white light with a man standing in it, and Picard's approaching the white light, which is afterlife imagery. But then when Picard grabs the hand of the person standing in the white light, it's Q. And Q steps forward, and we see him, and he's like, "Welcome to the afterlife, Jean-Luc. You're dead." Which is such a... And the music crescendos to sort of really hammer this home. And it's such a jarring moment, and I think it's such a great way to thrust you into this episode that's going to be about Picard dealing with his own mortality, and I think that was absolutely brilliant. Really loved it. So next I'll get into my number 8, which is Living Witness from Voyager. This is a very unique episode in itself, a very unique concept, and the opening scene is also reflects that by being very unique, because we open with Janeway talking to this alien, but Janeway's hair is a bit different, the uniform's a bit different, the set's a bit off. There's little subtle details to clue in the audience that something's a bit off. But then when she starts speaking, that's her biggest clue that something's wrong, because what she's saying makes no sense, because she's talking about how violence is the Starfleet way, and then she's negotiating with this alien for intervening in their own war and like killing their political rival, which is like nothing, of course, nothing like the way Janeway or Starfleet would behave. And then when Janeway goes onto the bridge and agrees to this, we see other characters who, like Chakotay has like a full tattoo, and we see Neelix in a Starfleet uniform. We see Kazon walking around in a Starfleet uniform, and has Janeway's talking about killing all these innocent people, and the Doctor's an android, and he's talking about introducing this virus that will wipe out this population. So you're like, what in the ever-loving fuck is that? Like, what is going on? Is this like a parallel universe? Is this the mirror universe? Like, what's happening here? And then, as Voyager is firing on, innocent civilians, the image freezes. And then we go out and we see this, guy in plain clothes, giving a lecture to a bunch of people who are watching him, this alien, and then making it clear that what they're watching a hollow program, that they're watching what we just saw was a sort of, I think it's accurate to say, fictionalized version of events. And as he's talking, he's like, explaining this is a pivotal moment in our history, the Voyager encounter, blah, blah, blah. And then it ends with him saying, and on that day, 700 years ago, we're still feeling the effects of that. So they're making it clear that, boom, lets you know right at the end of the teaser, this episode is going to take place 700 years in the future from the perspective of an alien race trying to understand history, which, as I mentioned, is a very unique, interesting concept. But this is, again, the best way to draw the audience into that, to make them fascinated by that, by at first just jumping them right into the fictional scenario of, people 700 years in the future trying to piece together what happens. So they got so many things wrong, yet it's very reminiscent. And they're, of course, and as we see, we get that from this trailer, that they're influenced by their own personal bias by thinking that Voyager interfered with their planet, and so they think that they're the bad guys, and so that's how they're portraying them. In fact, this teaser itself brings up really interesting, philosophical questions to the viewer as, this is why the Prime Directive exists, and if this is what happens if Voyager or Starfleet does interfere with aliens, these are repercussions it could have, and so it makes you totally engaged to see the rest of the episode. So it's a very effective first scene. So, next on my list, my number 7 is the Council from Star Trek Enterprise. Now, this is another really short teaser, and I think it's a very, very effective one. And of course, it's more effective if you've been, just like the episode's more effective, it's more effective if you've been following it, because it's part of a serialized story where the Enterprise went to find the Xindi to get them to not destroy Earth, they're building a weapon to destroy Earth, but we find that the Xindi, or the reason why they're building the weapon to destroy Earth, is because they were told from these strange aliens from the future that humanity would destroy the Xindi, but we also find out that they're lying to them, that the fact is that Xindi and Starfleet will team up to stop these future aliens from spreading, and so they are trying to affect the timelines. So that background information is important to know, because we hadn't really seen much of these aliens before. We saw snippets of them as they're talking to the Xindi, but this episode opens with just them. In fact, I'm not entirely sure. I think it might be the same exact character, just different versions along the timeline, or maybe there are several characters. I know we see the same character more than once. Talking about how, they can predict the timelines, they can predict what's happening, and they can see that the humans might prevail, they might defeat them, and how they need to stop that from happening. And the teaser ends with them saying, Earth must be destroyed. It really ups the stake, and it's why I love these last 3 episodes of season 3 of Enterprise so much, that it really ups the stakes. It makes this whole story arc way more interesting. It makes the stakes more interesting. It makes them clear, and it's a very unique sort of scene in itself, very stylistic. So absolutely love it. So, next on my list is my number 6, which is The Visitor. This is a bit more quiet. scene, more sort of dramatic scene. But again, it has that element of strangeness because you open on this room, some really nice music. By the way, I fucking love the music in this episode, and particularly in this teaser. It's very calming and very kind of melancholy a bit, and you see this room that seems to be, in a house, and you see a picture of Benjamin and Jake Sisko on the wall, and you see Sisko's baseball, and there's this old guy sitting there. And then someone knocks at the door. This young girl comes in, and she's talking about how she's lost in the bayou or whatever, and then she eventually drops the big bomb saying that, oh, you're Jake Sisko. So then this tells the audience this old guy is Jake Sisko. So it really makes sense that this is taking place in the future. And then she also talks about how he's her favorite author, and she wants to be a writer and is really looking for advice from him. And so again, it's setting the stage because she makes it clear that he only wrote 2 books, and she wants to know what happened to him. So this is setting the stage for what the story is going to tell. And he has this really beautiful line where he says, and this line always gets to me, where he says, if it so happened that you came a couple days ago, a week ago, I would have sent you on your way and not answered your question, because she asks him what happened, why she only wrote the 2 books. But then he says, but here you are, today of all days, and it seems like the right time to tell my story. It's just, I don't know, I always found that line really powerful, particularly the way he says it. It speaks to destiny, or to just things feeling right. And of course, as we learn, he's planning on killing himself later that evening, so that's why it's so meaningful to him that she arrived on that particular day. And so he starts telling the story with the worst thing. He was 18, and the worst thing happened to a young man that could happen. My father died, and then we cut. And so again, so this makes it very clear what the episode's going to be about. It's going to be about Jake growing up without his father, and so. Yeah, it not only does it clearly set out what the episode's going to be about, it does it in a very meaningful, very powerful way. So it's always one of my favorites. Alright, so next on my list, my number 5, Yesterday's Enterprise. This is, again, this is another sort of straightforward, but it is really unique. It's similar to Mirror a bit, but I like it better. I think it's more, first of all, we open with Guinan and Worf just having a normal chat about prune. She introduces him to prune juice, which will be a running thing throughout Worf's character arc, and then they're talking, but then they see this weird anomaly outside 10 forward, and they're like, Guinan's first reaction is like, no, this is wrong, which again sets the stage for her intuition and how something is up. And then Worf goes on the bridge, and they're like, oh, Data's doing a lot of technobabble, and like, what is this weird anomaly thingy? I don't know, is it there or not there, what is it? And then there's like, oh, a ship's emerging, and then boom, you get the instant change of all of a sudden the ship's different, it's darker. I guess it's like the Titan A from Picard 3 season 3, get it? Because there's no fucking lighting. Anyway, it's darker, and their uniforms have changed, and then all of a sudden Worf's gone, and Tasha Yar's there, and she's talking about, oh, this is what is trying to understand the ship, and then they flash back to 10 forward, where Guinan, the lighting's like more bright, as in contrast. There's more people around. They're like wearing these, phasers and uniforms, and Guinan herself is being like, no, this is wrong. Something's changed. This shouldn't be. And then we go back to the bridge, And we see, Tasha Yar analyzing the ship, and they're saying, this is, the registry's NCC 1701C, USS Enterprise. And then Picard's looking at it, it's like, what? The Enterprise of the past. So this is a lot of information they're throwing at you. And one thing I love about this teaser, and not only is it jarring and bizarre like Mirror Mirror, but as I said, I think it's better because it doesn't hold your hand. It really expects the audience to pick up on the pieces. And if they don't, then that's okay, because as the episode progresses, it will explain and make this more clear what the hell just happened. But I love how it doesn't try. I love how it just throws all this at you. The weird anomaly ship comes through, instantly everything's different, and it's a ship from the past. So if you put it together, you say the timeline has changed. This is an alternate timeline. This ship coming from the past into the future has changed the timeline for the worse, because things are obviously a lot more warlike. They make that clear with the setting, with the uniform, with the way they're behaving, and with Guinan, like her doubts, that sets the stage for the rest of the episode, of that she's going to have an inclination that the timeline has been changed. Like, it's a really perfect teaser. Like, I think it really, really does everything a teaser should. Alright, so next on my list, number 4, Timeless from Star Trek Voyager. This one is a bit more, I would say, subtle, but it is also, again, presents a very, strange scenario, because so you open on this ice setting, and you see two people beam down, dressed heavily so you can't see who they are because they're dressed for this extremely cold weather. And they're just wandering through this, polar ice environment. And you see them, they're searching for something, and they have their devices. And you see one of them lean down and like, we're here. And now, if you're very astute, you could recognize Chakotay's voice. But otherwise, you're like, who are these people? What do they mean they're here? And then you zoom out, and you see the Voyager, the USS Voyager, frozen in ice. So implying, again, it's not holding your hand, it's really implying it's been destroyed. Voyager's been destroyed, and there's people excavating this. What the ever-loving fuck? And I do like how this teaser, more than others, don't give you all the information up front, and that's what really hooks you. And you need to watch the rest of the episode to get that this is in the future, that's Chakotay and that's Kim, and that they're trying to restore the timeline. But it just gives you enough to know, what the hell? Voyager's frozen in some ice world. So I love it. I thought it was very effective. So next we'll get into my top 3. We're getting to these are my favorites. Absolutely love these top 3 here. All could have been my number 1, but we'll start with my number 3, which is In a Mirror Darkly, Part 1 from Star Trek Enterprise. God. This has always been. This is kind of a guilty pleasure, not really, but it's really a fan servicey. But God damn it, I love it. I remember watching this for the first time, and just my mouth was hanging open for 5 minutes straight. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they're actually doing it. So, In a Mirror Darkly opening scene shows is a recreation of Star Trek First Contact. The scene at the very end where the Vulcans introduced humanity, and they meet Zefram Cochrane, which was an important part of that film, and is also an important part of the show Enterprise, because it's referenced a lot how humanity, discovered a warp drive, and they met the Vulcans, and this is what led them into space. When here we see the moment, but something seems a bit off. And I do like how, and because I've seen First Contact a billion times, I'm able to pick up on this, and I'm sure a lot of other Star Trek fans could. But they blend scenes from that film with new footage and new actors, but they blend them seamlessly. And so you're seeing the recreation of, the Vulcan meeting Zefram Cochrane, but when, the Vulcan does his salute and Zefram Cochrane tries to do it but fails, and in the movie he instead reaches out his hand to shake hands. But in here, all of a sudden, this is where it diverges. Instead of reaching his hand out, he reaches his hand in his pocket, brings out a gun and shoots the Vulcan, and then we see, the other characters like, board the ship! And they all start firing on the Vulcans and invade them. And so that is what's setting up. God damn, that was such... I'm getting tingles just talking about that. That was such an effective way to start the episode and just throw, hey, we're in the mirror universe. And it doesn't just... I'm not going to end there. Even though that's where the teaser ends, we go into the opening credits, which is different from Enterprise, which is notorious as the worst opening credits. I rail against that theme song. It's the worst thing Star Trek has ever done. Ever. But that theme song's gone because this is the mirror universe, and the credits, the visuals have changed. The show war, and the music's like dun dun, and it shows like how all the war progresses, and it has flashes of the Terran Empire. I'm like, holy fuck! That, to me, that was the most shocking way to open the episode. That was like so good. It was so good. Anyway, we'll now get into my number 2, which I'll be honest, at one stage I had this at number 1, but I flipped my number 1 and number 2, so this became my number 2. Because I do love this teaser a lot. And okay, it is from Scorpion, Part 1 from Voyager. Now, this teaser is the shortest one on my list. And so I love how it's so short. It's like, I think it's like 28 seconds. It shows 2 Borg ships, and they're going, "We are the Borg, you will be assimilated, assistance is futile." And then we see weapons fire at the Borgs, and the ships are destroyed, and that's it. I think that's, again, I'm doing the short and simple, straight to the fucking point, but at the same time, totally mind-blowing. Completely mind-blowing. Especially at this point in stage where the Borg hadn't been overdone yet by Voyager or Picard. Don't even get me started on Picard. At this point in the stage, we hadn't seen that much of the Borg. And we only seen them teased on Voyager. We haven't actually... Voyager never, actually went into them yet. And so... the Borg ship signified something that's terrifying. Like, one Borg ship is out, it was coming, we're the Borg, you'll be assimilated. You're fucked. You need a whole fleet, and even then you might not even succeed. You're complete, this is an unstoppable foe. And here we see not one but 2 ships, twice as powerful, twice as, holy shit, we're fucked, we're all dead, we're gonna be assimilated, there's no way to counter this. And then a second later, boom, they're destroyed in an instant, easily, which is such a mind-boggling thing. Who the fuck would be able to destroy this impossible, you need an entire fleet and tons of ingenuity to defeat one ship after long, arduous struggle, and yet, in an instant, 2 ships are instantly destroyed. And it's definitely done in a way implying that this is going to be an even worse enemy. So goddamn, that's, again, quick but effective. Absolutely love that. It was nearly my number 1. But for my number 1, I'll go with something a bit more classic, which people might be able to predict because it has been lauded by many as one of the best teasers in the Star Trek franchise, and that is Cause and Effect from The Next Generation. Now, again, this is another mind-blowing one, but it is done perfectly. So it starts with, you see an exterior shot of the Enterprise with a nacelle, like, in, on fire, or you can tell there's something wrong with the Enterprise. You hear a lot of sound that signifies that there's something wrong with the Enterprise, and you cut to the bridge and everyone's scrambling and they're saying, oh no, the warp core is going to breach, and we're trying to, doing the technical babble, trying to save the ship, and they're like, oh, all hands, and then we get the line where, Jean-Luc, all hands abandon ship, repeat, all hands abandon. And then the Enterprise fucking blows up. And that's the teaser, and then it goes to the opening credits, and you're like, what? You just blew up the Enterprise. You just killed all the characters, and the first minute of the episode. I mean, there is no more effective way to begin an episode than that. And I love how they jump you straight to the action, straight to the end. They don't preamble it too much. They jump you straight into the ship is already being destroyed. And so you really, how did the ship get there? How did it get destroyed? And how can you kill off the Enterprise? How can you destroy the Enterprise before you even show the opening credits? And then if you watch, when you come back from the first commercial break into Act 1, the Enterprise is normal. It's fine. Everyone's fine. And so the whole time you're wondering, what? Why? We just saw the ship destroyed. And then, of course, you get to the end of Act 1, you see the ship is destroyed. The exact same scene play out, and the ship's destroyed again. And then Act 2, the ship's again fine again. So that's when it really starts to, there's a time loop situation where they're repeating the same moment over and over again. But you don't really get that from the opening scene. That's why it's perfect. I love how they didn't try to explain that it was a time loop. They just said, here, everyone's dead. Watch some more. It's such a very smart, very really effective way to begin the episode. So yeah, that is my number one favorite opening scene / teaser of the Star Trek franchise. So that is it for my top 10 opening scenes of the Star Trek franchise. Thank you so much for watching. I am almost positive that I forgot some good ones, so if you would like to leave some in the description below, or even ones that you personally liked, I would definitely be really interested to hear that. In the comment section, I should say. Yes, I would definitely be very interested to hear that. And also, of course, want to thank my Patreon supporters. Thanks to Kyrie091 for requesting this video, and all of those that do support me on Patreon. It does really help my channel, help it grow. It's really inspirational for me to keep going. So we have Chuck Hooks, Kyrie091, Anthony D. Benedictus, Ricky Jester, Joel Avals, Brian A., Alessandro Migalacio, Norman Buchwald, Stephen Kennedy, Brenton Berg, Allison Fordyce, and Brandon Neilhouse. Thank you all so very much for your support, and thank you all for checking out this video. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to check out my channel as I cover many more Star Trek videos, including shows covering Star Trek the original series and many other shows as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.